You're just in time for NTV Tonight, the headlines.
Tonight, Sports Cabinet Secretary Gladys Gachanja's supremacy battle with Kakamega Senator Cleophas Malala gets ugly and down low dirty.
Walipomuuliza pesa, waziri alienda akapatia dereva wake.
Nude photos and Photoshop the ammunition.
Also tonight,
let him be today the first Kenyan to bite the bullet and resign and just step aside.
If this house cannot force the Inspector General to take responsibility, then we are doing the service for Kenyans.
Legislators demand accountability for rising number of road accidents as government rediscovers Mishuki rules from the dusty shelves.
Plus, embattled Migori Governor Obado released on bail in the cover of darkness.
Also tonight, Agriculture CS Mwangi Kiunjuri says his ministry is not to blame for unpaid maize farmers.
Because of the heavy burden we had collecting maize, the rice and everything, some of the maize we drained emptying the silos.
The Auditor General wants him to explain suspect 4 billion shilling expenditure.
NTV Tonight with Masai and Gladys Gachanja.
And our sign language interpreter tonight is David Agondoa.
Top story tonight, Sports and Culture Cabinet Secretary Gladys Gachanja is in the eye of a storm as details emerge that he may have used the services of journalists to portray Kakamega Senator Cleophas Malala as a philanderer by creating falsified nude images and spreading them on social media in a dramatic escalation of deep-seated political differences.
CS Gachanja and his driver have been summoned to record statements Friday morning at the KICC police station, while the journalists involved will be presented before court Friday morning.
Sports and Culture Cabinet Secretary Gladys Gachanja and Senator Cleophas Malala appear to be in a dirty political supremacy war, one that has them engaging in new laws, even by the country's low standards of politicking. The Sports CS is allegedly behind a dirty campaign that exposes their no-holds-barred approach to politics. 3 practicing journalists confessed implicating CS Gachanja as their financier in designing false images of a supposedly nude Senator Malala in a compromising position with a young lady.
The minister sent back the photo to me and directed that I edit that photo to portray that Kakamega Senator Cleophas Malala the photo should be edited so that it portrays that it's him.
It's a very unfortunate incident that a person of CS's Gachanja caliber can use us as professionals to taint the image of his colleague in the government, that is Senator Malala.
All this, the journalists say, for 5,000 shillings with a promise of more once the job was done.
Walipomuuliza pesa, waziri alienda akapatia dereva wake anaitwa Frederick Ouma, ambaye kwa majina ya utani anaitwa Adamu. Dereva wake official ndio alitumia hao wanahabari pesa, na tuko paka na message ya M-Pesa.
In June this year, youth supporting the two clashed at Matungo in Mumias in a duel that left some of them nursing injuries and Senator Malala's car damaged. It is also claimed the two, through their supporters, clashed heavily in the run-up to the 2017 elections as CS Gachanja campaigned for Jubilee while Senator Malala campaigned for NASA. In June, an amateur video uploaded on YouTube by Kenya News Alert showed Senator Malala belittling CS Gachanja on his new job as a cabinet secretary.
Kama cabinet secretary, uli-apply hiyo kazi na ulikuwa na certificate moja inaitwa birth certificate.
The two have used any available opportunity to hit at each other, but recent developments attributed to the CS are a new low in this mudslinging battle between two relatively young politicians. These messages show alleged conversations between the CS and one of the journalists. Some show them seeking approval on the way forward, while others show requests for cash after work has been done. CS Gachanja and his driver Frederick Ouma whose number was allegedly used to send money to the journalist, have been asked to appear at the KICC police station on Friday to record a statement for alleged contravention of the Cybercrime Act of 2018. Efforts by NTV to get a hold of CS Gachanja did not yield fruit as his phone was off. The three journalists will be arraigned in court on Friday morning to answer to the same charges on contravention of the Cybercrime Act of 2018. Kennedy Muredhi, NTV.
What a low. And we want to find out what you think about this story as you've watched it. And yes, it's going to develop tomorrow as we follow it. And not quite a yes or no answer question we're putting forward. It's just, what do you feel about the story? I personally feel it's unfortunate the journalists allow themselves to be used in this whole game.
Well, remember, you can reach out to us. That is at NTV Kenya, at Mark Masai, at Gladys _Gachanja, and of course that free SMS portal 20686. Well, to other day stories, and the Ministry of Agriculture could have lost 4 billion shillings, which was paid out for the importation of maize, according to a report by Auditor General Edward Oko.
This comes even as Agriculture CS Mwangi Kiunjuri today blamed Treasury for the payment of over 16 billion shillings to traders who imported maize from South Africa and Mexico.
Kiunjuri, who appeared before the Senate Ad Hoc Committee on the Maize Crisis, says Treasury gave a free window when it issued a Gazette notice for importation, but without consultation with the Ministry of Agriculture.
Silas Apollo reports.
We seek guidance to treat and consider.
Agriculture Cabinet Secretary Mwangi Kiunjuri was before the Senate Ad Hoc Committee on Maize, which sought answers on the status of payment made to farmers for grain sold to the National Cereals and Produce Board, the amount of money the government had paid, and the quantity of maize imported into the country. It is during this session that revelation was made that part of the maize which had been imported into the country was rotting away in silos.
If cereals boards had money to pay the millers who imported the maize and cost the country 16-point-something billion, why didn't they themselves import the maize?
The committee was particularly concerned about the government's importation of surplus maize, which cost the country billions of shillings.
You said ESCC has been investigating. Has anybody been found culpable for this kind of fraud?
Kiunjuri told the committee that while he was not in a position to give a report on the status of the maize, the ministry was in the process of selling the grain at half price to avoid further contamination.
Why some of this maize is turning yellow is that because of the heavy burden we had collecting maize, the rice and everything, some of the maize we drained emptying the silos, and the maize now had started turning yellow.
But Kiunjuri may not be out of the woods just yet. A report by the Auditor General Edward Oko says the ministry cannot provide proof of payment of some 4 billion shillings which was paid to traders who imported maize. Payments were made in the year ending June 30th, 2017, before Kiunjuri took charge of the ministry. The amount, says Oko, was paid to 5 suppliers, namely MS Exports Trading, which received 3 payments totaling 3.6 million shillings, Haideri P Limited, which was paid the highest at 3 billion shillings, and Kitui Mills, which received 400 million shillings. The other 2 were Mombasa Maize Millers, which was paid 609 million shillings, and MS Pembe Flour Mills, which received 400 million shillings. The ministry also stored maize worth 1.8 billion shillings, but which was unfit for human consumption. This was during the 2015-2016 financial year.
As the Senate Ad Hoc Committee awaits a report on the contamination of the maize from the CS Mwangi Kiunjuri next week, they say that it is their hope that this will serve as a lesson to the government going forward. Silas Apollo, NTV, at Parliament Buildings.
A majority of the members of the National Assembly Committee on Transport want Inspector General of Police Joseph Boynet to resign over the rising number of road accident fatalities.
The MPs put Boynet on the spot about the increasing number of deaths on the roads, and NTV's Vincent Odor has more details.
It is that we build Inspector General of Police Joseph Boynet, accompanied by Traffic Commandant Samuel Kimaru and National Transport and Safety Authority Director General Francis Major, appeared before the National Assembly Committee on Transport, where he absolved himself from any blame for the increased cases of road accidents in the country ever since traffic management was taken away from the National Transport and Safety Authority and put under his command.
Safety on our highways cannot be left entirely in the hands of the traffic police. We will be acting responsibly ourselves as a people. Responsibility should, in our view, in the primary instance, be the hands of the driver.
Majority of the committee members wanted Boynet to resign over the Fort Tenan accident in Kericho that killed 58 passengers, now that no traffic officers have been interdicted so far.
We didn't have police officers at that very late hour.
He said the buck will stop at him. And so, let him be today the first Kenyan to bite the bullet and just step aside.
I can assure you, this thing, those people are buried, nobody will take responsibility. If this house cannot force Inspector General to take responsibility, then we are doing disservice to Kenyans.
The committee doubted the viability of the new chain of command, saying it has left traffic officers powerless and ineffective, since they are now supposed to report to officers commanding police stations for the chain to finally get to the Inspector General.
Maybe you can have some way where we can have the commandant, not only to make policy, maybe we can have the commandant to be in charge of traffic, so that all of these people can somehow report to the traffic commandant.
The committee is proposing amendments to the Traffic Act to make traffic officers, owners and administrators of SACCOs take responsibility for accidents that occur within their jurisdiction.
Inspector General Joseph Boynet has informed the parliamentary committee that for the last 2 months they have arrested and charged 39,000 drivers with traffic offences in court.
According to the latest numbers by the National Transport and Safety Authority covering January to August 26th, about 1,967 people have died on road accidents this year, 183 more than the number recorded at the same time last year. Vincent Odur, NTV.
Now, staying on the roads, public service vehicles have been given 2 weeks to comply with the Traffic Act and the famous but long neglected Mishuki rules.
A joint statement by the Ministries of Transport and Interior directed all public service vehicles be fitted with speed governors, safety belt and the continuous yellow line or prepare to face the law.
Rose Wangoi has more.
Kenyans are still reeling from the pain and sense of helplessness following the horrific Fort Tenan bus accident in which 58 people lost their lives and a dozen others were injured in a tragedy which could have been avoided. Reckless driving has been termed as the major cause for accidents in public service vehicles. But perhaps the solution to ending road carnage in the country lies in regulating road users. Interior Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i and his transport counterpart James Macharia today issued a notice to all public service vehicles in a bid to tame rogue drivers and their touts. In a joint statement, the two cabinet secretaries have warned that all matatus must comply with the Mishuki rules in 3 weeks' time or risk being dealt with as per the law. The statement said from Monday 12th November 2018, all public service vehicles must be fitted with speed governors, safety belts on each seat, yellow continuous line. At the same time, all PSV drivers and conductors are required to wear uniforms and PSV badges as prescribed by law, prominently display their photos as prescribed by law. The late former Transport Minister John Michuki introduced the tough laws back in 2003, and while he faced resistance from the industry players, he did not relent and had the public backing him. Matiang'i and Macharia have given a grace period of 2 weeks for all stakeholders to comply with the new rules. Passengers and other relevant parties that fail to comply with the provisions of the NTSA Act and the Traffic Act will be firmly dealt with in accordance with the law. Ruzongwe, NTV.
The Council of Governors has formed an 11-member committee to champion the interests of counties in the referendum.
The committee, that will be co-chaired by Makueni Governor Gifuda Kibwana and Meru Governor Kiraitu Murungi, will audit the needs of counties before settling on a referendum question that will then be forwarded to the IEBC.
The governors also say they will only support the referendum to the extent that it increases funding to counties and is Wanjiko-driven. Ken Mijungu reports.
The 9-member committee will also include Bomet Governor Joyce Laboso, Kisumu Governor Professor Peter Anyang' Nyong'o, Kilifi Governor Amason Kingi, Kitui Governor Charity Ngilu, Kericho Governor Paul Chepkwony, Nyandarua Governor Francis Kimemia, Kakamega Governor Wycliffe Oparanya, Mandera Governor Ali Roba, and Siaya Governor Cornel Rasanga. This team is tasked with spearheading an internal audit in the counties to see how devolution has been implemented, and this will inform the referendum question for the counties.
When issues of referendum are being discussed, the county governments are so critical in this because the county assemblies will be required to participate in approving any referendum questions before those questions are put out to the public.
But even as the governors begin engaging on the referendum, they are concerned with what they term a slow disbursement of funds to the counties. Last month, the Controller of Budget indicated that the counties had received more than 25% of their allocations in the 2018-2019 financial year.
Our view is that more finances should now be allocated through the Constitution itself.
The governors also say the Oversight and Accountability Bill 2018 is in bad faith and unconstitutional. The bill is currently before the Senate, but they want it rejected.
This is basically bringing back through the back door the funding issue of the 2 billion shillings that the senators wanted to abrogate themselves in the view that they want to oversight counties, which the National Assembly rejected.
The reason they want the bill rejected, the governors say, is because it goes against Article 96 of the Constitution, which confers oversight upon all senators. The council also announced that the next devolution conference will be held in Sagana in Kirinyaga County between the 4th and 8th of March next year. Ken Mijungu, NTV.
Governor Obado has finally secured his release from remand prison. He left the industrial area remand prison a few minutes to 7 p.m., according to a member of his press team.
The governor's supporters had spent the day hanging around the industrial area remand and allocation prison in anticipation of his release. Obado has been charged with the murder of his lover and their unborn child.
Obado was sneaked out of the facility amidst fears that another group of police officers was lying in wait to re-arrest him on separate charges.
This was the decoy. A convoy of vehicles ushered out of the industrial area remand and allocation prison as part of a scheme to misdirect Migori Governor Obado supporters and members of the press. Both spent the better part of Thursday awaiting his release on bail, the sort of trick magicians employ to focus their audience's attention on a bauble as they perform a sleight of hand. And they succeeded, if only briefly. It did not take his supporters long, however, to smell a rat, having not seen him, and the prison's authorities were then forced to employ more forceful tactics to get rid of them. And no one was spared, the political class included. Obado was thereafter, NTV has been reliably informed, ushered away. Obado, who was granted bail on Wednesday, has spent more than a month behind bars following his indictment on a murder charge. On account of a reported hitch with one of his two sureties, he spent an additional night in prison Wednesday. And while he may not have been the first governor to find himself behind the dock, he certainly made history for being the first governor under the current constitutional dispensation to face charges for a capital offence. Olive Barrows, NTV.
Nairobi residents have been urged to give their views on the proposed finance bill of 2018 that seeks to raise taxes and rates before the public participation period lapses tomorrow.
The governor says the proposals, which include increased parking and garbage collection fees, will only be implemented if the majority of residents back them up.
NTV's Brenda Wanga reports.
It's lunch hour in the CBD Nairobi, and a handful of people have gathered around a makeshift pulpit. For 1 hour, they will listen as evangelist Anya ministers to them, feeding their souls. This isn't a free service, though. The evangelist says every hour she preaches, the county government earns money from her and others like her.
Nianza na 750, nimekumbuka. Ikaja 1000, ikaja 15, ikawa 2500. Na risiti zote niko nazo.
At the end of the service, she collects offerings from her flock, but she says she barely breaks even.
Wanapandisha pesa. Waje Uhuru Park, sadaka zikoro ikitiwe kila sehemu, Uhuru Park yote mpaka kule university. Ingawa huwa tufanyi hivyo. Waje watu kila mtu, alafu hiyo mfuko wa sadaka imiminwe, ingawa ni laana kwa waone.
These activities are some of the areas that the county government is seeking to tap into to show up its revenues. If the proposals as contained in the proposed Finance Bill 2018 of the Nairobi County Government are adopted, then it will cost the daytime preachers twice as much per hour to access and use this facility in the CBD. Currently, daytime lone preachers part with 500 shillings to preach at the Central Park, Jivanji and City Park. The county will now charge 1,000 shillings for the same. It isn't the only avenue the county government is planning to use to squeeze more money out of the city's taxpayers. If the proposals are passed, it will cost the taxpayer 500 shillings, up from 400, to have the carcasses of small animals like hen, cats and pigs collected by the county government. The carcasses of bigger animals like cows, donkeys, horses and camels will attract a collection charge of 5,000 shillings, up from the current 4,000. But perhaps the most pinch will be felt by the low-income earners, who will now pay the county government 100 shillings every month to have the county collect garbage from their homes. Middle income earners will pay 300 shillings, while the high-end suburb dwellers will pay 500 shillings to have the county do its work. The pain of the increase in rates is also expected to reflect on the roads. Parking charges for both private and commercial vehicles are also set to increase. The county government is seeking to increase its revenue collection to plug in the 7 billion shillings deficit and its ambitious 34 billion shillings budget. The efforts coming on the back of reduced revenue collections of 8.8 billion shillings this year, as compared to the same period last year when the county collected 9.8 billion shillings. Brenda Wanga, NTV.
To the coast now, a heavy downpour in Mombasa caused flooding in parts of the coastal city, leading to traffic snarl-ups and flash floods in the town and surrounding areas.
It's been a bit of poor here in Nairobi as well, but the rains there in Mombasa, which started on Wednesday night, have rendered most of the roads impassable, disrupting normal operations in businesses as residents struggle to cope with the unbearable situation.
The heavy rains pounding Mombasa have once again become a nightmare to locals and motorists traversing the coastal city. They have expressed their disappointment with the situation, slamming the county government for failing to address the drainage problem, which they say is the main contributor to flash floods.
Sisi tumekwama kwa hii maji. Tuondoleeni maji Mombasa County. Serikali ya county ifanye mpango bana. Tunapata tabu sana. Tunapotembea kuna mashimo. Mwenzangu ameingia kwa shimo, sasa hivi yuko hospitali.
The downpour also affected some residential areas such as Changamwe, Mikindani, Mishomoroni and even areas of Bombolulu, where in some instances residents were complaining of floodwaters in their homes.
Maji venye yako mengi, unashindwa utapata vipi matatu, kwa sababu stage ndio hiyo, maji yamejaa, na kutoka hapa kufikia hapo kwenye unaweza pata matatu ni kizaazaa.
In some major roads, residents came together to control traffic, while others unclogged the blocked drainage to help ease the situation.
You can see the roads are flooded and there's nobody to control the situation. So we've just taken it up on ourselves. Even the staff, you can see all the staff around there. They're the ones who are actually helping to clear the drainage, you know.
Some pedestrians remained stranded as they waited for the rains to subside, but for the few who braved the pounding rains and floods, they had to wade through the raging waters.
Kuvukisha mtu kutoka hapa hadi ngambo ile ni pesa ngapi?
Kama 50 vile.
Yeah. Mmeshapata wateja wangapi?
Wateja kama 2 hivi.
Yeah. Na unatarajia kuendelea kufanya kazi hii hadi saa ngapi?
Tunatarajia kuendelea hivyo hivyo mpaka hadi mafuriko atakapoisha. Ndio tuweze kutulia.
The rains come days after the weatherman issued an advisory warning residents of Kwale, Mombasa, Kilifi, Tana River and Lamu counties of possible flash floods. Fishermen have also been asked to halt their operations in the sea due to high and raging tides. Kevin Mutai, NTV, Mombasa.
We take a break here now, but just a recap of our top focus and question tonight, and there are details emerging that the sports CS Rashid Chessa, beg your pardon, may have used the services of 3 journalists to portray Kakamega Senator Cleophas Malala as a philanderer, and there has been a tiff between the two, and this has definitely been a new low in the back and forth between them.
Well, your comments coming through. There's one here from M. Haimba who says it's a sign of immaturity and childish behavior. It's so shameless of a leader to stoop that low.
And Shiro, you say, sad that many youth look up to the CS. Very pathetic and unbecoming. What's becoming of journalism? Journalists, fourth estate, who'll echo citizens' voice if the media council members are compromised. Media should never be entangled, but should be the whistleblowers. 2 wrongs won't make it right. Shiro, well said.
Sad indeed, but hey, at this point we take another short break, or our first short break on NTV Tonight. We'll be back with more. Thank you for staying with us. The Airline Workers Union initial call to its members to keep off the inaugural Kenya Airways direct flight from Nairobi to New York was sabotage and irresponsible.
This is according to Kenya Airways chairman Michael Joseph, who also says that for KQ to remain competitive in the region, there needs to be a change in the tax structure, which is still a thorn in the flesh.
He spoke to Dan Mwangi just days ahead of the much-anticipated JKRA to JFKA flight.
Just speaking about the flight, and there have been issues in regards to the staff and the union of the, the Aviation Workers Union, saying that they're not permitted, they're contractually, legally, not supposed to go beyond a certain length. What's your comment on that?
First of all, they have withdrawn their supposed advice to their members to boycott the flight. So they've withdrawn that. I think it's just the union using their muscle to say, okay, let's see what we can get, because the flight's so important to us. But I think from my point of view, I think it was a strategic mistake on their side, because we are in negotiation of a new collective bargaining, this new CBA, which is always a tense, there's lots of things in the CBA. It's a very long, detailed document that you're negotiating many things, not just, and one of the things that they in the new CBA is the additional allowances that you get paid and additional flight times that you have to negotiate, because the flight is 14 hours long. And for the flight crew, it's not 14 hours. The flight crew arrive at the plane an hour and a half beforehand, and they don't get off the plane for an hour after the passengers leave. So sometimes you could be there 17 hours on a plane. It was negotiation of those allowances that we had not finalized. We will finalize it. It'll be sorted out. I think the union just tried to use their muscle a little bit inappropriately, in my opinion, because they know how important this flight is to Kenya Airways. They know that if and it's a very big if, and they had been successful, it'd been hugely damaging to Kenya Airways, maybe fatally damaging to Kenya Airways, because we're flying to America. You're flying where passengers have a huge amount of choice, where passengers are critical and in their choice of who they're going to fly. So if we suddenly had to cancel a flight for some silly union action, it would have been devastating to Kenya Airways. In my point of view, from my viewpoint, I think that was sabotage. But to announce on a Monday for a flight that's leaving on a Sunday that we are now going to boycott the flight when the CBA negotiations have been going on for a long time, to me is irresponsible.
We've had these conversations on CBA and the threats of strike, some of them which materialized to some extent. When do we foresee this this kind of conversation coming to a close?
I think you need to have a different kind of relationship between management and the unions. Now, not the people, the unions, okay? I differentiate from management and the people working for KQ. The unions. The unions, you have to have a different relationship, and I think we're getting there. We had this issue with CALPA, with the pilots union. We had a lot of discussions, very good discussions, and we resolved those issues. But, it's not unusual in our industry. And it's not just Kenya Airways, but you can look around the world at any airline that has got a union. There's always going to be a little bit of tension before you finally sign the CBA. We can't grant everybody to salary increases and everything they want, and they know that. In fact, if you look at our salary structure, and this is one argument that we have both on the flying crew, the pilots, and on the rest of the crew, we pay extremely well. In fact, our pilots are paid extremely well. So, but we don't have a lot of room to say, okay, let's increase it even more.
You've mentioned other airlines like Ethiopian Airlines. We've seen a number of times people have tried to draw parallels. What's your comment on that?
Look, we have to compare because they're our fiercest competitor. I mean, that if you want to fly to London, you have a choice. You have a choice, of enormous choice. And one of the choices that you have is Ethiopian, which is a very strong, well-run airline, and they can offer a very competitive price compared to us because our costs are much higher. We have, as I said, we have unions. We have taxes on our fuel. They have no taxes on their fuel. They don't have any unions. They are state-owned and state-subsidized. It's naturally that we compare ourselves with them, and we are at a significant disadvantage to them. In order for us to compete fairly and to make sure that we put Kenya Airways on the map and improve and grow Kenya Airways, we need to be able to compete fairly against them. We're not saying that we need to be exactly like them, but we need to be able to have a better playing field. I think we need to have another look at the tax structure. We need to look at this deal that we're now making between Kenya Airways and Jomo Kenyatta Airport. That deal will help us a lot because all these other airlines run and manage their airports as well. So if we can have that, that would give us a tremendous advantage. And I think we just need to have a much more efficient, not an efficient, you should probably say efficient staff. I don't think we'll ever have the same cost structure. It's impossible. But if we can be more productive, if we have a better service, I mean, our service on Kenya Airways is second to none. If we can continue that and improve that, I think we can compete fairly.
Are we going to see more sale of assets?
No. I don't think we have anything left to sell, to be quite honest with you. No, I don't see any sale of assets. I think what we're trying to do right now is, and I don't want to say too much, is that we're re-looking at our lease payments again. So, how we have some payments that we can structure, maybe restructure some of our aircraft leases, restructure that. There's a possibility of how we pay for the fuel, how we pay for our fuel, the tax on our fuel and various other taxes that we pay. There's quite a few things that we are offering to improve our cash flow. There's no crisis.
And one final that there have been complaints a number of times about KQ's service provision, be it sometimes you find people complain of delayed flights. And you've mentioned that, you've said that KQ is one of the best services across the region. But at times you find there are reports that are kind of contrary to this.
Look, I think this is taken completely out of context, because Kenya Airways, and whenever a plane is delayed, somebody always makes a comment in social media, to you, on the newspapers, a plane is delayed. This is a fact of life. You go to any airline with our size of fleet, there are always delays. There are always unforeseen events. What we don't do always well is, when we do have a delay, how do we manage the delay? And how do we communicate the delay? And we need to do better at that. For sure, we need to do better at that.
Dan Mwangi's conversation there with Michael Joseph. A good precursor to the business news that Gladys will be handling after the break. Stay with us.
Thank you for staying with us. The Kenya Revenue Authority now wants oil marketers to issue electronic tax register receipts to motorists fueling at the stations as it struggles to plug tax loopholes in meeting its ambitious 1.7 trillion shilling revenue target for the 2018-2019 financial year. Victor Kiprop has the details.
It has now been about a month since President Uhuru Kenyatta signed the Finance Bill of 2018 into law, loading the 8% value-added tax on petroleum products. The Kenya Revenue Authority has now embarked on sealing possible revenue loopholes to finance the new law and has ordered that fuel stations issue electronic tax register receipts to every customer. Oil marketing companies rarely issue ETR receipts unless on demand, a scenario the KRA believes is not only illegal but also a possible scheme to avoid accounting for sales. The dealers were also reportedly making disproportional input value-added tax claims that do not reflect on their sales volumes. The taxman says that fuel stations risk penalties for non-compliance to this requirement, which could prove logistically strenuous owing to the high number of transactions taking place at those stations. The government hopes to collect some 40 billion shillings from taxes on fuel products, down from the possible 71 billion shillings targeted when the VAT was halved from the previous 16% after consumer outcry. Petroleum products had been exempted from VAT until last month when the government introduced the tax, which pushed up the prices of diesel, petrol and kerosene. Victor Kiprop, NTV Business.
In 2017, transactions to the tune of 6.9 trillion shillings took place on Safaricom's M-Pesa platform, representing 89% of Kenya's economy. And in November 2016, a Treasury report warned that a collapse of M-Pesa would cause widespread disruptions to the economy. As the company celebrates 18 years, we sat down with its founding Chief Executive Officer, Michael Joseph, to take stock of the journey it has traveled and why other players in the sector want it declared dominant.
The Competition Authority's August 2018 memorandum to the Parliament's Communication Committee stated that Safaricom does not have significant market power in the areas of voice, data and subscriptions. Coming against the backdrop of relentless accusation of market dominance, this position took many by surprise. As far as Michael Joseph is concerned, dominance only becomes an issue if it is abused to undercut competitors.
Okay, we have become the strongest player in the market, okay, because we have invested. If you look at the amount of money that we have invested, Safaricom, from the beginning, not just in the telecom side, in the mobile side, in the data side, and particularly in the M-Pesa side, and you compare it with the people that complain the most, which is the company that started at the same time we started, and you will see a huge difference in investment.
Regarding what the future holds, Michael Joseph argues that whereas the possibility that the M-Pesa arm of the business could be separated from Safaricom cannot be overlooked, it would be inconsequential. He also holds the view that the displacement of voice as a key revenue driver will continue.
If you look going forward, the future is data. Clearly data is the future. You know, voice will become less and less because people will use data to communicate, do voice calls and things like that. So I think the emphasis is going to be on data, and as long as we haven't sufficient spectrum to grow the data side, I think I don't see, possibly you'll see that the average spend per customer will come down as you add more and more customers from the bottom of the pyramid. You might see the average spend per customer to come down. Would you see the margins coming down? Possibly, yes.
Safaricom has been losing its grip on mobile subscription in the country with 65.4% market share as at June 2018, down from 72.6% a year earlier. Julian Samboko, NTV.
Staying with the telecoms, Airtel Kenya, the country's second largest telecoms operator, will now raise the cost of mobile data bundles even after the new taxes recently introduced by the government. The recently passed Finance Act 2018 raised excise duty tax applicable on voice, SMS and data services was increased to 15% from 10%, but the company says it will not adjust its existing prices for data.
Is impacted by taxes. Okay, the way we have actually
priced it, none of our bundles will be impacted by the taxes. So neither is this one. Happy customers will always bring you business. So if the customers are happy with the products, I think business will grow.
Kenol coal bill closed Thursday's trade at 19 shillings and 90 cents, posting a slight gain from Wednesday's closing price, a day after French firm Rubis Energy announced intention to acquire it. With more details on that, as well as the salient happenings at the equity market, here now is Lillian Carey.
The gain in price for Kenol coal bill comes despite the Capital Markets Authority's announcement that there may have been suspicious dealings related to the takeover bid of the oil marketer. CMA says it will disclose if any breaches of the law are established and the appropriate action that it will take if necessary once the investigations are complete. Meanwhile, Susan Mboya has resigned from the position of chairman and non-executive director of Liberty Holdings after a 6-year stint. Philip Odera will serve as acting chairperson pending Mboya's replacement. Liberty Holdings share price has gained 3.2% since the start of 2018 and closed Wednesday's trade at 13 shillings and 20 cents. KCB Group has named Andrew Wambari Cairo as its new board chairman, replacing Ngeni Biwot's 5-year tenure at the helm. In a statement from KCB, Wambari has been appointed due to his extensive business and executive experience in the financial sector. He has served as an independent non-executive director at KCB and was a member of the audit committee of the Commonwealth Secretariat. Cairo was also a director at Ghana International Bank and also served as the bank's CEO. The appointment comes as the bank gears up to take over Imperial Bank, which was placed under receivership in October 2015. Investment firm Olympia Capital has seen its net profit jump by close to 70% from 5.5 million shillings to 9.3 million shillings over the 6-month period that ended on 31st August 2018. The NSE-listed company's revenue also went up from 228 million shillings to 250 million shillings, equivalent to 10% growth. The company has announced that it has no plans to dish out an interim dividend. Lillian Carey, NTV.
Social media giant Facebook has been fined a total of $644,600 in the United Kingdom over its Cambridge Analytica data scandal. Now, the country's privacy watchdog said Facebook had carried out serious breaches of data protection by illegally harvesting personal information of at least 1 million UK users. Data belonging to at least 87 million Facebook users is estimated to have been harvested from a personality quiz by Cambridge Analytica with the intention of influencing political outcomes. All the news we had for you on business, but a lot more coming your way right after this.
Welcome back, and we start with some history being made just yesterday. Ethiopia has appointed a woman to the largely ceremony. Welcome to the sports. The SportPesa Premier League 2018 Awards was held this evening at the Kenya School of Government in Kabete, Nairobi County. Our sports reporter Ida Waringa is live at the venue. And Ida, the first question, of course, who are the winners?
Yes, Mark, it's looking good. Actually, the day is finally here. It's a day that's been waited on by many people. The Kenyan Premier League Awards are done and dusted here at the Kenya School of Government in Kabete. Now, just before I give you the lowdown of all the big winners, just to give you a bit of controversy that was happening right before the awards. Of course, the huge debate being that despite Gor Mahia winning the league with 6 games left, they only had 3 players nominated in different categories, that being Joash Onyango, Harun Shakava, and Jacques Tuyisenge. Now, weird thing about it, depending on which side of the divide you fall in, is that no Gor Mahia player has actually walked away with any first prize. We did have Jacques Tuyisenge take up the first runners-up in the Golden Boot, but to get to the lowdown itself, undoubtedly the man of the night being Kariobangi Sharks' Eric Kapaito. He takes home 3 awards. The big one, of course, being the KPL Most Valuable Player or the KPL MVP Award, and that comes with prize money of 1 million shillings. He's also taken home the KPL New Player of the Year, and of course, we have seen him take the Golden Boot. He did manage to pip everyone else on the final day, scoring 16 goals, which is a huge achievement for Kariobangi Sharks. They managed to retain that particular award. Don't forget, they won the Golden Boot last year as well, but it was through Masood Juma, and they managed to retain it this year with Eric Kapaito. Just a few of the other big winners of the night. Gor Mahia actually took the Fair Play Club of the Year. Their treasurer, Sally Bolo, actually had quite the comments, you know, actually terming it straight and outright as unfair and lack of transparency, rather, in regards to Gor Mahia actually only having 3 players nominated in this year's awards. Well, Mike Madoya did take the Fair Play Player of the Year. Cliff Nyakea took the Midfielder of the Year. Feli Mulumba took the Defender of the Year. He was crucial in Bandari's number 2 finish on that log. Well, Eric Kapaito, as I said, took the New Player of the Year, Golden Boot as well. Jacques Tuyisenge, first runners-up. Farouk Shikalo took the Golden Glove. He is the goalkeeper for Bandari. We did get a few bites from some of these players, so we will be sure to bring that to you much later on. Back to you in the studio.
Ida Waringa, thank you very much. Not only bites will we have in terms of responses to those who've won, but I'm sure we'll also have some of them as guests on NTV Today tomorrow morning from 9 a.m. Thank you for that. Such a sport, Ida. Harambee Stars have moved up 2 places in the latest FIFA rankings, rising from 107 in the world to 105. The climb is due to an encouraging run of results for Sebastian Minye's Chargers that include a draw and a win against Ethiopia in the African Cup of Nations qualifiers. Before that was a shock win for the Stars, who stunned African giants Ghana 1-0 in Nairobi in another AFCON qualifier. Tunisia continued to top the table in Africa at position 22 in the world. Meanwhile, former world champions Germany plummeted further to 14th in the rankings as Belgium became the best-ranked nation in the world, overtaking France. Harambee Starlets will play a friendly against Ghana's Black Queens in Kenya on the 7th of November. The match was announced on the Ghana Football Association's official website and will be part of the team's preparations for next month's African Women's Cup of Nations in Ghana. Starlets are in Group B with defending champions Nigeria, South Africa and Zambia at the Cape Coast Stadium. Host Ghana are in Group A with Algeria, Mali and Cameroon at the Accra Sports Stadium. The tournament begins on the 17th of November with the final being played on the Saturday, 1st December at Accra Sports Stadium. Despite relegation of GFE 105 from the National Super League, the promotion of Eldoret Youth FC to the same league has given football fans in Eldoret reason to smile. And as Gabriel Kudaka reports, having topped Zone B unbeaten, the greater goal for Eldoret Youth will be to shine in NSL and earn promotion to KPL, and therefore ending a decade of absence of a team from Eldoret in the top flight league.
With 22 wins and 4 draws to finish on top of the Division 1 Zone B League with an unbeaten record, Eldoret Youth FC places itself as a new hope to the future of football in the North Rift region, which is synonymous with athletics.
The boys have struggled this year, wakamaliza with an unbeaten record, playing 26 games unbeaten, despite having very tough competitors from Shabana, which is a well-known team. And that has been there for some time now.
Started in 2011, Eldoret Youth has a unique formula for its 2018 success.
Tumengana tukishuka, tunajaribu, tunashuka, bado tunakomatua hapo. So this round tukatoka na formation fulani, tukasema tunarudi kwanza kwa kanisa, unaona? Then tukasema tukirudi kwa Mungu, then tunarudi kucheza sasa hii ball, unaona? So tumeingia hapo hivyo. Kuna kila kitu inakuwa easier. Then tukapata support kwa fans.
We sat down, we talked to them na tukawa prepare in all ways so that wajue wakiingia hapa kama ni kutaka kwenda promotion itabidi wajitoe kabisa, and they did that.
The team is now appealing to well-wishers and the governments both in the national and county level to support them in order to promote football in the region.
Katika hii season tumekuwa na changamoto kadha wa kadha. Kwa mfano usafiri imekuwa ni changamoto kubwa sana, kutoka Eldoret kwenda mpaka Bomet, kwenda Transmara, kwenda Bondo, imekuwa ni shida sana kwetu, na ni vile hatuna hata sponsorship from any corporate.
Eldoret Youth and Kirinyaga-based Fortune Sacco joined the second tier league with GFE 105 and Nakuru All Stars relegated. Kisii-based Shabana and Coast-based Mwatate will battle for the remaining NSL slot on Sunday at the Kasarani Stadium. It is more than 10 years since the relegation of Eldoret KCC and Rivertex. Hence, this qualification will no doubt spur interest in the local soccer. Gabriel Kudaka, NTV Sport.
Just before I head out, Arsenal. Thank you for watching NTV Tonight. My name is Masai. Good night.
My name is Gladys Gachanja. Special thank you to David Agondoa, who was our sign language interpreter tonight. Late 360 is next.